They discovered a deceased female on the floor in an advanced stage of decomposition. Their body to be in an apartment for a very lengthy period of time and not contact authorities, that raises a lot of concerns for us.
What concerned the police even more was the autopsy's result. The victim was 8 months pregnant. But who was this mysterious woman? Why had no one reported her missing? And who could commit such a brutal act? Hello and welcome back. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell. In today's episode, we're diving into the senseless case that resulted in the death of 3 innocent people. Without further ado, let's get started. On a chilling December day in 2022, Ayala Wundimu was working at a Shell gas station convenience store called Dash & Go, located on New Hampshire Avenue in Silver Spring, Maryland. Ayala Wundimu was a devoted husband and hardworking man. Born on November 2, 1961, in Ethiopia, Wundimu came to the United States with his wife in 2002, hoping to build a new life filled with opportunity. Though far from homeland, Wundimu never abandoned his roots or his faith. He became a respected member of the Tuatho Church of the Ethiopian Orthodox community in Maryland. For years, this gas station had been his workplace, but at 61, Wundimu was ready to retire, hoping to spend more time with his loved ones. December 8, 2022 was meant to be his last day at work. At around 2:58 p.m., a man entered the convenience store. At first glance, he seemed like any other customer, picking up a bottle of iced tea from the shelf and approaching the counter. But this man wasn't here just to make a purchase. He argued with Wundimu over the iced tea, and that minor disagreement quickly spiraled out of control. The customer began throwing items at Wundimu. Startled, Wundimu grabbed a metal pole from behind the counter and swung at the man. His intentions were clear: to protect himself and de-escalate the situation. The man stepped back and without warning, pulled out a gun from his pocket, a silver handgun, glinting under the store's fluorescent lights. Aiming directly at Wundimu, he pulled the trigger, firing a shot at point-blank range. But the violence didn't end there. The assailant, filled with rage, climbed onto the counter and fired multiple rounds, ensuring that Wundimu's death. Satisfied, he grabbed his bottle of iced tea, casually walked out of the store, and disappeared into the streets. At 3:03 p.m., police received a distress call.
On December 8th, which was yesterday, at 3:03 p.m., the Montgomery County Police Emergency Communications Center received a call for a shooting.
Officers rushed to the scene, discovering Ayala Wundimu slumped behind the counter, his chest bearing multiple gunshot wounds.
Ayala Wundimu, an employee behind the cash register counter, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the chest. Wundimu was pronounced deceased on scene by Montgomery County Fire Rescue personnel.
Medical personnel attempted to save him, but it was too late. Wundimu had succumbed to his injuries. A day meant to begin a new chapter instead marked his tragic end. As police began their investigation, they turned to the store's CCTV footage. After carefully reviewing each second and collecting statements from witnesses, they quickly identified the suspect, 31-year-old Tori Damian Moore.
Moore was observed leaving the store and headed in the direction of the Enclave Apartments, which is across the street. Detectives from Major Crimes applied for and obtained an arrest warrant charging Tori Moore, 31 years old, with first-degree murder and use of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime.
On December 9, 2022, authorities officially charged Tory Damian Moore with first-degree murder and the use of a firearm in a violent crime. Surveillance footage proved invaluable, capturing not only the brutal incident but also Moore's escape route from the convenience store. As investigators traced his movements, they discovered Moore resided in the Enclave Apartments, located right across the street from the crime scene. Given the violent nature of the crime, a SWAT team was dispatched to execute a no-knock search warrant at his apartment. Under a no-knock warrant, police can enter a residence without warning, prepared to act swiftly and forcefully.
His front door was completely smashed in. SWAT had served a no-knock warrant overnight.
Tory Moore was arrested at his home, where officers also discovered a Jimenez armed semi-automatic handgun.
Moore was taken into custody without incident. Items of evidence, to include a 9mm handgun, were located and seized by detectives.
But what they found next was beyond anyone's darkest expectations. Lying on the floor, concealed in the shadows, was the decomposing body of a woman. The corpse, nearly mummified, had deteriorated so bad that identification was impossible. It was transferred to the Montgomery County office of the chief medical examiner for an autopsy.
When SWAT made entry, and after arresting Moore, they discovered a deceased female, believed to be an adult, on the floor in the apartment in an advanced stage of decomposition.
When questioned by police, Moore calmly admitted the horrifying truth: the victim was his girlfriend, Denise Middleton. He killed her during a heated argument. Then came the chilling revelation: Middleton was 8 months pregnant at the time of her death.
What appears to be a 26-year-old female who was 8 months pregnant.
Despite Middleton suffering 7 gunshot wounds, no one reported any unusual sounds on the day of her murder. For weeks, Moore lived alongside her decomposing body without alerting anyone. Even more strangely, no missing person report had been filed by her family. No formal complaints had been made about strange odors from Moore's apartment. One resident, Tony Panetta, noticed an overwhelming stench as he stepped out of the elevator near Moore's residence, but he thought it was rotting trash. Another neighbor, Leah Kemp, explained she had reported foul odors in the hall but only received one letter from the Enclave Apartments manager. We will be launching a new property management software system and a new resident portal. The resident portal will no longer be available.
I think that is crazy because our portal to make requests has been down for 2 months. So even if there were requests, they could have just gone unnoticed or have not been documented. But I did give a call on Monday just to ask if they were going to put out a statement or anything. They told me to contact the local police department and they weren't going to put anything out about it.
For weeks, the neighbors had to suffer unsettling odor, yet no one knew that just down the hall lay the body of a decomposing mother. Denise Jenna Middleton was born on March 14, 1996. In 2022, while pursuing her professional hairdressing career in Silver Spring, she met Tory Moore, and together they built a life at the Enclave Apartments. Her future seemed bright, especially when Middleton discovered she was expecting a baby boy. She chose the name Ezekiel for her unborn son, inspired by the archangel, a symbol of protection and faith. Her dreams of motherhood were filled with hope and anticipation. Tragically, Middleton's life was brutally cut short at the hands of her own partner, Tory Moore. The autopsy report laid bare the chilling details of Middleton's murder. She was shot 7 times with the same weapon later used to kill Isla Wundamo. Doctors estimated her death occurred around October 2022, over a month before her body was found.
A forensic pathologist examined the child at the time of the autopsy and determined that the 8-month-old child was in fact viable at the time of his mother's death.
The tragic timing of her death made the loss even more heartbreaking. Had Middleton survived just a few days longer, her baby boy might be born. Adding to the family's devastation, the dignified farewell she deserved was cruelly taken away. Due to the condition of her body, her remains had to be cremated.
When we heard how badly decomposed her body was, it was just unbelievable to believe that we had been living our lives for that long and not knowing that she was dead.
Moore's criminal record was extensive and filled with red flags. Over the years, he had been charged with various offenses, including armed robbery, first and second-degree assault, armed robbery with a deadly weapon, kidnapping, narcotics possession with intent to distribute, and unlawful possession of a loaded handgun. These charges, some dated back years, showed a dark and violent side that few in his life had fully comprehended. One notable incident was a charge for aggravated assault filed by none other than Denise Middleton herself. In June 2022, Middleton reported an assault to police in Norfolk, Virginia, accusing Moore of violent behavior. Her cousin told the police that in their final conversation, Middleton had fled to New York, trying to escape the cycle of abuse. Despite the attempts to distance herself, Moore's control over her seemed unrelenting. Friends and family recall how, in the months leading up to her death, Denise had become more withdrawn, less open about her relationship, and more isolated from her loved ones. As detectives delved into Moore's past, another unsettling detail came to light. Moore was legally prohibited from possessing a firearm due to his prior convictions. So, how did he acquire the murder weapon in the first place, and what other potential dangers he might have posed to the community? Additionally, court records indicated that Moore had been facing active charges for assault and that multiple complaints had been filed against him over the years for erratic and violent behavior. Despite these reports, Moore was able to avoid severe repercussions for his actions, a fact that left Denise's family and the community questioning how such a person could have been allowed to roam free. With Moore's violent history out in the open, detectives grew more committed to seeking justice for both Denise and Ayala. Authorities moved swiftly to expedite the legal proceedings, and Tory Moore was set to stand trial on Monday, December 12, 2022. Initially charged in the murder of Ayala Wundumo, Moore now faced additional charges for the death of Denise Middleton and her unborn child. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, authorities also included a charge of violence against a pregnant person. After his arrest, Moore was transported to Montgomery County Police Headquarters, where he was read his Miranda rights and subsequently interviewed. During questioning, Moore admitted to visiting the convenience store, arguing with the clerk, and ultimately shooting him. However, when asked about Middleton's death, Moore denied any involvement. Although he had admitted to killing her, his initial confession was deemed inadmissible in court because it was made before he was advised of his rights. Moore now claimed he traveled to New York City to bring Middleton back to Maryland. When asked for a time frame, he referenced a vandalism incident involving his apartment door, saying he had left for New York shortly after reporting it to Montgomery County Police. Records confirmed Moore's report of the vandalism on May 12, 2022. Shortly after returning from New York City to Silver Spring, Moore and Middleton went out to pick up some food. On the murder day, though he did not specify exactly when, Moore recounted an argument erupted between them as they made their way back to the apartment. This conflict would ultimately end in her death. During that argument, Moore pushed Middleton down in front of his apartment, claiming she reacted like he was trying to kill her. He instructed her to get off the ground and stop putting on a show. According to Moore, Middleton remained visibly upset as they entered the apartment. He admitted a slap was probably thrown and I probably choked her a little bit. Afterward, the couple went to the bedroom. Moore tried to calm Middleton down. Then he left the apartment to buy marijuana. About an hour later, he returned, only to find Middleton unresponsive. When investigators questioned him about gunshot wounds or visible injuries on her body, Moore claimed he wasn't certain. He repeated that Middleton was pregnant, telling him the baby was his, a boy due in October. Till the end, Moore continued to deny any involvement in Middleton's death. He claimed that a few days after discovering her body, he traveled to California, where he remained for over a month before returning to his Maryland residence. Despite Moore's denials, the evidence against him, including witness statements and corroborating physical evidence, made it highly unlikely he could escape the charges. Police and prosecutors had gathered substantial proof, reinforcing the case for his involvement in both murders. Moore's first court appearance was on December 12, 2022, at the District Court in Rockville, Montgomery County, where the public eagerly awaited the swift and decisive justice. However, Moore's defense team requested a mental health evaluation. After reviewing the report from the Office of Court-Ordered Evaluations and Placements within the Department of Health, Justice Amy Bills ruled that Moore was not competent to stand trial.
Not competent to stand trial, and was also a danger to himself or to others.
This request brought the legal proceedings to a temporary halt, frustrating the families of the victims who were desperate for closure. Tory Moore appeared in court for further hearings on December 15 and December 19, 2022, each addressing his mental competence. In every session, Moore was deemed unfit to stand trial. State's Attorney John McCarthy voiced serious concerns, emphasizing Moore's potential danger to himself and others should he be released into the community. Consequently, Moore was held in police custody without the possibility of bond.
It's important to note that he is not free in the community. He is being held without bond because of the dangerousness, even though it's still pending as an evaluation for competency.
Moore's request to be released under pretrial supervision was also denied. In an emotional interview, Middleton's cousin expressed her frustration, saying, "I believe that when he got to a point where it was just too much to bear, he came over here to get caught. You think this was just his way of going out with a bang, and he didn't know what to do with her body. I hope that judgment is passed down swiftly on Tory Moore. He is not incompetent at all. I do not believe he is incompetent to stand trial because he was able to tell the cops what he did to her, and why." As news of Moore's alleged incompetency spread, people took to social media and local news outlets, voicing their anger and disbelief. Many questioned how someone with Moore's history and the evidence against him could be deemed unfit, fearing that he might escape accountability. The court acknowledged these concerns, yet under Maryland law, competency to stand trial must be fairly evaluated. Competency assessments consider whether a defendant understands the nature of the proceedings and can actively participate in their defense. Though the delays frustrated many, the court had a legal obligation to ensure Moore's rights were protected, regardless of the severity of his alleged crimes. After the court's ruling, Moore was placed in a mental health facility for treatment. In 2023, he was finally deemed fit to stand trial. The next year, on May 16, 2024, 33-year-old Tory Damian Moore, guilty of first-degree murder, use of a gun while committing a violent crime and illegal possession of a gun in the death of Isla Wundamo. Moore faces life in prison in connection to the shooting. He is expected to be sentenced on December 12, 2024. Meanwhile, Middleton's murder trial is scheduled on November 18, 2024. As the community awaited the next steps in Moore's case, Middleton's family held on to hope that justice would ultimately prevail. They knew the road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but they were determined to honor Middleton's memory and protect the future of their community. What do you think? Could Moore's mental state allow him to evade justice? Will he be responsible for the death of Middleton and their unborn child? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to share in the comments. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, let us know. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.